All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Blockbuster Breakdown, another edition of our film reviews. I said a few weeks ago that we were going to be doing more film reviews on this podcast, and we were going to shy away from our previous format where we would do news and a review in one episode, and we are now going to be doing distinct episodes where news are going to drop every Wednesday, film reviews every Friday. We have been a bit lazy, I will admit, with this format, but we're trying to get more on top of it, and so hopefully here on out we're going to have a new review every Friday, and today we are covering the newly released Captain Marvel, and as always, joined alongside by myself, Liam Crowley, to review this movie with me is my good friend Mike Gillis. Mike, how's it going?
What's up, guys? Happy to do another movie review. We saw this a couple weeks ago during break. We have been, I've been busy, as I said before, but I'm excited to jump into this, better late than never.
Absolutely. And as Mike said, we saw this about 2 weeks ago now, so the good news is it has marinated for a bit, and this is one of those movies, it definitely polarized audiences. We had very differing opinions, almost from two camps, people that were annoyed to see this movie, annoyed that this movie was being made, and wanted to bash it before it even came out, and then people that were really into it and into the prospects and the diversity it brought into the MCU. And so I think those camps kind of evolved into four camps after people that were willing to say, I was pleasantly surprised by this movie after not anticipating it, and then the people who were anticipating it that were kind of let down. So yeah, this movie, very controversial, very polarizing, but a very important movie. I will say this is going to go down as one of the most important movies in, I'd say, this decade. I don't want to hyperbolize it too much, because despite Wonder Woman coming out before it, it's no denying that this is, being in the MCU, it almost holds its own importance. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even though I do think, and I will get to this, I think Wonder Woman, I liked it a little bit more, but
yeah.
I feel like because the MCU is so much more successful, and with people, I think it's going to be like, oh, Captain Marvel is this big movie, especially coming out in the Me Too era.
Absolutely. And basically elaborating on that, Wonder Woman, sure, it's in the DCEU, but the DCEU, the DC Universe, is kind of in an awkward place where they're focusing more on standalone movies. And while Wonder Woman was the first, universally praised and successful female-led superhero, we saw some iterations, early 2000s. There was a Supergirl movie. There was a Catwoman movie. It was the first attempt in a while for a female-led superhero to be brought to the big screen. And so Captain Marvel differs in the sense, while it is kind of the second female-led superhero in the past few years to have her own standalone movie, it's the first female-led film in the MCU, and we're now 21 films in, so it is going to go down as a landmark movie for sure. And yeah, we're going to get right into it. We just want to remind you guys that this is going to be a spoiler-heavy review. We are going to be talking about this movie as if you saw the movie with us. So if you have not seen the movie, go out and see it. If you just don't care about spoilers, feel free to keep listening, and we're going to break all aspects of it down for you. But we like to remind you guys that this show, Blockbuster Breakdown, we cover those blockbuster movies, and they don't just have to be the movies with the big budgets. We define blockbuster on the show as any movie that has that mainstream appeal and is typically based on extensive source material, a movie that the trailers alone make you go, I need to see that right now. I will say this movie meets almost all of that part of our definition except the trailers. I thought the trailers for this movie and marketing overall was extremely weak.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. It was weird. I thought I'd see a lot more advertisement for this, as they always push these movies to the extreme, but for some reason I just didn't see as much advertisement as I did for something like Endgame or even like a Guardians movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, this movie had an interesting ad campaign. We had a few trailers that kind of missed the mark. Later on, their trailers and TV spots I started to enjoy more, but compared to other marketing campaigns for comic book movies or even the MCU, we see right now Endgame, I think, has a fantastic marketing campaign with the extreme limitations that are put on it for the marketing department, not giving them a lot of footage to work with. And so comparing Captain Marvel's marketing campaign to the Endgame campaign that we're in right now, I was not too impressed. But as we said, we're not going to focus too much on the marketing. We're going to talk about the movie. And just to give a box office update, Captain Marvel currently has grossed $812 million worldwide. Astronomical number for Captain Marvel, a massive success. You would have to imagine this being the first female-led superhero and it's an introduction to a character, so there's no way they got that $250 million Avengers budget. The production budget is currently disclosed. It's not on Box Office Mojo, but I would imagine this movie got around the $100 to $150 million range. It's grossed $282 million domestically, very far behind movies like Black Panther and Avengers, Infinity War domestically, but right around that Captain America, the First Avenger, Ant-Man domestic box office, which all Marvel movies have been profitable at this point. Not a worry. People say it's going to reach $1 billion. I don't know. 812 is a lot, and I think it's going to be close, but the fact that it's been in theaters now, this current weekend's box office, I think, will define it for sure because it made around $67 million last weekend. We'll see what this weekend brings for it in terms of finances, but nonetheless, it is definitely a financial success. With that being said, we are now going to get into specific plot points and all that. So if you were still listening after the first spoiler warning and you haven't seen it, make sure you turn off this podcast now, or you go watch the movie and come back and join. Or if you don't care, feel free to stay. With all that being said, we are now going to get into our specific plot points. Mike, I'm going to start asking you a question. Pros versus cons. Give me some of your pros from this movie.
I think some of the performances were really good. I think Samuel Jackson did great. Ben Mendelsohn as Talos was really fun. It was great to see Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson again. But some of the cons, I know a lot of people were talking about Brie Larson's performance as Carol Danvers, and I'm sure this is something we'll talk about later in the podcast as well. But I don't think she did terrible, but I do think there probably could have been a better actress to play her. I don't have that actress in mind right now, and that would be hypocritical of me to say regardless, but I feel like she did good for what she had. Maybe it was the script, maybe not, but I feel like she just didn't feel like a superhero.
Yeah, my pros and cons. My big pro is the first act of this movie I really enjoyed. I was watching this movie going in with weird expectations because from a marketing standpoint, I was not too excited, but the fact it was a Marvel movie, I was just like, as soon as that fanfare hits, as soon as we see the Marvel credits, which got to give a shout out, fantastic tribute to Stan Lee, really touching, gave me goosebumps.
Theater applauded for that.
Sorry?
The theater, the people applauded.
Yeah, that was it was a great moment to be a part of. That's why I love going to the early releases of movies in the first weekend, because the people that are there want to be there, and so you kind of feel like you're surrounded by fans rather than just people who are going to see a movie. And the fact that we were a part of that and people applauded for the Stan Lee tribute, that was a very touching thing. And so props to Captain Marvel for that tribute. And yeah, my first big pro is the first act because it felt like a whole different movie than what was being advertised. I liked seeing some of the stuff on the Kree planet.
Yeah.
I liked the first chase scene when it's our first real introduction to the Skrulls, and Samuel L. Jackson is in the car and he gets a call from Agent Coulson, and then he realizes Coulson that is in the car with him is a Skrull. That aspect got me so intrigued because you can never trust anyone. And I love that mystery aspect. That first chase scene was really cool. When she lands in the blockbuster, also really cool. And then the first,
very 90s.
Yeah, the first heist, kind of, when they go to the planet that they say has been infiltrated by Skrulls. I thought that was also a really cool scene. We'll touch on that scene specifically later when we get into kind of the midpoint of the movie. And yeah, my con of this movie, I hate to say it because I never want to see a bad performance, but my con is Brie Larson. This is not the role for her. She's a tremendous actress. She won Best Actress for her performance in Room, but her performance was wooden, and it oftentimes seemed like, not that she didn't care, but just she didn't have the action movie star charisma to play this role. And you can be a tremendous actor and be a terrible action star. There's a lot of people that bring a certain it factor to action movies that will never get nominated for an Oscar. They're two distinct things. And Brie Larson, here's the thing. Her filmography is pretty short. She doesn't have a ton of roles, but she has been in some hit movies, cult classics, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, 21 Jump Street, Room, obviously, and she's also in Kong Skull Island. It's the first Captain Marvel, and a lot of people are saying that people who didn't like her performance are saying she's going to work better in an ensemble. So I look forward to seeing how the Russo brothers portray her in Avengers Endgame, and I hope that she does in fact merge well with the Avengers. But this movie, I was not too crazy about her performance.
Yeah. And I also wanted to mention, and since we're in spoiler territories already, I think now that I think about it, I think my biggest con was the use of the Skrulls.
Yes. I definitely want to. Yeah. If you want to focus on that particular moment now, we can. But before that, pros versus cons. I just got to ask real quick: which do you think outweighed?
I don't know. This movie, like, it felt so just like neutral to me. Like, I never really hated it, but I never really loved it. You know, it just felt pretty just mediocre, I guess. You know, like, I didn't have like a terrible time in the theater because it was still like there was still fun action stuff, but like sometimes I just like didn't care about any of the characters because I knew they were going to survive because it took place in the past, most of them at least. Yeah. And then like I don't know, I just felt like, especially the last scene, there was absolutely no stakes, none at all. So I think maybe it's a little bit more cons for me.
Yeah, it's weird because my score kind of falls in the middle ground. We'll get to that at the very end, but I gotta say that the cons outweigh because after the first act, when the Skrull twist is revealed, this movie just lost me. And there were moments I was laughing, and they were not comedically intended moments, just based on what was going on. And it wasn't like a mocking laugh. It was just some of the stuff. It was just coming off weird. And after the twist, there's certain parts of it. It's called a twist because it changes the movie completely. And twists make or break movies. And this twist, unfortunately for me, broke the remainder of the plot. And as Mike alluded to, we're now going to get into the Skrull twist. And basically the twist is that the Skrulls, that these Kree military people have been hunting down, the space police essentially, they're the good guys. And the Kree are the bad guys. And I tweeted about this when my first gut reactions coming out of Captain Marvel, that this movie takes the plot of a certain Black Mirror episode in poor execution. That Black Mirror episode is called Men Against Fire. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Spoilers for Men Against Fire, but it's been out for a while. Basically, in that episode of Black Mirror, these soldiers are hunting down these people who are supposed to be bad, and then it reveals that the soldiers actually have some implant in their brain which makes them see them as these gross monsters when in reality they're just diseased people, and they're being told to hunt them down because their disease will spread and kill people, but nonetheless they're not bad people, they just have a disease. And so this movie, the Skrulls are revealed to just be refugees, and they don't mean any harm, and they're not looking to take over planets and infiltrate with their shape-shifting abilities. They're just looking for a new home. And so the Kree are actually in the wrong for hunting them down. But my gripe there is they never give a reason why the Kree and Skrulls hate each other. Or not even that, why the Kree hate the Skrulls. They never give a reason. They just say that they hate the Skrulls and that they need to be executed.
Yeah. They just say, they're scum and they're nothing. They, kill planets and stuff. And, I mean, that's what it is in the comic books, the source material. That's what it is. But, the Skrulls are pretty evil in the comic books. Yeah. They do take over planets. So, I mean, I understand trying to, change things up so it's not so predictable for, big comic book fans. But sometimes the big comic book fan wants to see what they've read on the pages for years up on the screen. And I just don't think it was properly given to them. And that's not to say they deserve everything they deserve, it's on a silver platter, but I think it's interesting they tried to change it up, and I think this could have gone over fine if they did it correctly, but I don't think the execution kind of met the means.